2. Education. The College of William and Mary, and Ames Schools. At one end of the town's main street stood the College of William and Mary. The college was named after King William III and Queen Mary II of England. In 1693, they gave the order to start a school. Work on the first building, which was later named the Wren Building, began in 1695 and was completed in 1700. The town was called Middle Plantation. In 1699, the House of Burgesses moved the capital of Virginia from Jamestown to Middle Plantation. At this time, they renamed the town Williamsburg, in honor of England's king. While a new capital was being built, the Wren Building held the government offices. The College of William and Mary was a school for boys that included a grammar school. Here, boys aged 12 to 16 learned to read, write, and do arithmetic. Older boys could study to become priests in the Church of England, or the Anglican Church. In the 1700s, about 100 boys attended William and Mary each year. Many famous people studied there. In fact, 4 men who later became U.S. presidents, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, and John Tyler, attended the college. Boys and girls in the colonies were educated differently. In large towns like Williamsburg, many boys went to school. In the countryside, families with enough money might send boys to study with a local minister or priest. Or parents might hire a tutor, or private teacher, to come to their homes. In the colonies, women usually took care of running the home. As a result, it was thought that girls did not need to go to school and should stay at home instead. Rather, many girls learned cooking, sewing, and other skills from their mothers and older sisters. Some girls attended dame schools. Dame means woman or lady. Parents hired women who ran these schools in their homes to teach small groups of young children, boys and girls. Students learned reading, writing, and arithmetic, along with lessons in civility, or manners. The girls also learned prayers, knitting, and sewing. Few enslaved African children received a full education. African American parents who had some education might teach their children to read and write. Williamsburg did have 2 schools for non-white children. One was for African American children, while the other was for American Indian boys. Both schools taught children about the Anglican Church. Unfortunately, very few children were given the opportunity to attend these schools. Many Southern states passed strict laws against any further education of slaves. Rules learned by colonial children. Boys and girls in the colonies learned strict rules about how to behave. Some children studied a book titled Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior in Company and Conversation. As a teen, George Washington copied 110 rules from this book. He tried to live by them all his life. Here are a few of the rules. First, every action done in company ought to be with some sign of respect to those that are present. Second, when in company, put not your hands to any part of the body, not usually discovered, seen. Third, show nothing to your friend that may frighten him. Fourth, in the presence of others sing not to yourself with a humming noise, nor drum with your fingers or feet. Back to top. 3. Trades. The shoemaker's shop. If you walked along the streets of Williamsburg, you would see a number of shops where craftsmen worked at their trades. A craftsman produced and sold whatever service or good he specialized in at his store, which was called a trade shop. Pots, shoes, and candles were all goods made at trade shops. Craftsmen in the colonies made items that colonists needed for their homes and farms. Blacksmiths made objects such as cooking pots and plows out of iron and steel. Coopers made barrels and other containers, while millers ground grains into flour. Gunsmiths made rifles and repaired metal items like buckles, bells, and axes. Other craftsmen included carpenters, cabinet makers, and candle makers. There were 3 different levels of craftsmen who worked in trade shops. Master craftsmen owned their own shops and had extensive experience within their trade. Sometimes they hired 1 or 2 journeymen, who were skilled workers but did not own their own shops. Master craftsmen also used apprentices, who were aspiring workers who wished to learn the trade. Apprentices learned by working with a more skilled craftsman, completing tasks that required less skill. Apprentices worked for a period lasting from 4 to 7 years or until they reached the age of 21. At that point they could become journeymen. At times, enslaved African Americans were trained in a craft. Some slave owners allowed slaves to earn money by working for other people. Even so, very few slaves were able to save enough money to buy their freedom. One of the most common crafts in Williamsburg was shoemaking. Shoemakers specialized in making either men's or women's shoes and boots. At any one time, 10 to 12 shoemakers competed with one another for business. They also had to compete with merchants, or the people who buy and sell goods. Merchants' shops sold shoes that were made in other places, including Great Britain. Shopping for shoes in Williamsburg was not much different from buying shoes today. Customers could buy ready-made shoes in standard sizes, but if someone needed an unusual size or some other special feature, the shoemaker would make a custom pair just for that person. Back to top. Previous section Section 2 Education.